Hi everyone, in this tutorial I'll be showing off how to set up PostHog in Next.js. To do this, I'm going to be building a simple blog, adding authentication, then adding PostHog and setting up the PostHog features of custom event capture, user identification, feature flags, and more. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our Next app. So make sure you have Node installed, and then we can run npx create Next app at latest. And this will run us through some options. What's our project name? We're just going to choose tutorial. And then would you like to use TypeScript? We're going to choose no, and then we'll just choose the defaults for all the other ones. And this is going to create some files up here for us that we can use. So once we've done that, we can go into our tutorial folder and run npm run dev. And then this will run a local host. So it's running at 3001. When we go here, we'll see that we have a Next.js site running here, and we can go back and edit this in pages/index. So back in our app, we're gonna wanna create the actual blog content. So to do this, we're gonna create a file. It's gonna be called blog.json. And then inside this JSON, we're going to create a post, and then this is going to be a list of posts that are dictionaries. They have an ID, and so the first one's going to be 1. They have a title. They have content, and they have an author. And then we're going to create another one, and its ID is going to be 2. Its title is going to be PostHog is cool. Its content is going to be this is a great tutorial. And its author is going to be me. So we'll save that, and next we want to get this blog content into our Next.js app. So we'll go into index. And what we're going to do is we're going to get static props. So at the bottom of this file, we want to set up some getting of the props that we're going to pass to our component, and then that will allow us to render the blog post from that JSON file. So we're going to say export async function, get static props, and it's going to load the JSON file as posts. Import, and this is going to be blog.json, and then we will return this. It's props, posts, and then that's it, and then we'll just close this out. We'll save that, and then we'll basically get rid of all of the content they have here. We'll save the main part here, and we'll just add our code in here. We'll also remove kind of this stuff. We need to import link, the link component from Next, and we'll remove this inter as well so it doesn't bug out. We'll add the posts prop here to our function, and then we will create our blog. So it's just going to be called my blog, and then we'll map the post prop into individual posts. So this is going to map posts, and then it's going to have a key of post.id, and this is going to have a link to the post using the post ID, and then the title is just going to be the post.title, and we'll close out that link, we'll close out the piece there, and we'll close this title bracket here, and then we will close out the map, and we will save that. And we're also going to, while we're at it, delete these CSS files, and we're going to go to app and delete this one as well so we don't get the error. We'll save that, and then we'll head back to our app, and we should see our blogs showing up on our app. So back on our app, you'll see that we have a totally different looking page. We have 2 links to 2 different posts. Right now they don't go anywhere, but they do provide us a link to another page. And what we're gonna do now is set up this page, so the individual post page. So what we need to do now is set up our posts folder, and this will have the pages that show the individual posts. So in the pages folder, we're gonna create a new folder called posts, and inside that post folder, we're gonna create a file called id.js. And so this is going to get a ID param from the URL, and then we'll be able to handle this in this file. And we'll show how to do this here. So we're going to be getting the paths param from the getStaticPath, and then we'll pass that into a getStaticProps function, the same one we set up in index.js, to show the actual post. So to do this, we'll go async getStaticPaths. Then we want the posts, and note that it's 1 farther away than it says here. So because we're 1 folder down, it's 1 farther away. And then we'll map the posts and get the post ID as the ID for the param. But we also want to make sure that this is toString. And then we'll return that paths and fallback. And then we'll use the getStaticProps function with a param to get our blog posts, find the specific post that matches the param ID, and then pass that post as a prop. So we're going to now write the actual function. So it's going to be export default function post, and it's going to take a posts prop, and it's going to be a title and post content, and then we're going to also include the author. And we're going to save that. And then we will go to our app and check the page, and we'll see that we have a specific page for our posts. So back in our app now, when we click either of these links, we'll get an actual page for the post with the title, with the author, and with the content. And this is kind of the basics of the app we want. Next thing we're going to set up is authentication. So to set up authentication, we're going to need to do something a bit different here. We're going to first need to install Next.auth, which is like a library that provides simple authentication solutions. We're going to use their GitHub one, so users are able to sign into our site with GitHub super easily. We're going to just install that now. And then we're going to create in our pages/API a new folder called auth. And then inside this folder, we're going to create a file called Next.auth. So three dots and then Next.auth, one word, .js. We're going to import Next.auth, and this is where we're going to handle all the authorization. We don't want /next. And we're going to use the GitHub provider. And then we're going to export Next.auth, providers, and this is going to be a list, and we're just going to have the GitHub provider. We're going to have a client ID that's just going to be a GitHub ID. We're going to have a client secret of GitHub secret, and then we are going to have a Next.auth secret of Next.auth_secret. And we're going to close all this out here. Oops. So we'll save this. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to GitHub and create these secrets. So in GitHub, we're going to go to settings, and we're going to go to developer settings, and then we're going to create a new OAuth app. So the app name is just going to be Next Video Tutorial The home page is going to be http://localhost 3001, and then the callback URL is going to be this same thing, API/auth/callback/GitHub. So that's the API endpoint we set up. And then we're going to click register application, and we get a client ID, and I'll also generate a new client secret, and we will copy these and we'll go back to our app and we'll create a secrets file. So back in our app, we're going to go to the tutorial folder again, and we're going to create a .env.local file. And this is where we're going to create our GitHub ID, and that's where the one we just copied. We're going to have our GitHub secret, and this one we have to generate. Then we want our next auth URL, and that one equals localhost 3001, and then we want a next auth secret, and luckily there's a simple site we can go to get this. So we'll just go back to our browser, we'll generate a secret here, so we'll copy that and we'll put that there, save that, and I'll just add my GitHub secret. So with my env file set up, now we can set up sessions. So to do this, we're going to go to our app.js file, and we're going to import the session provider from Next.auth. And we're going to pass a session as a page prop as well. So we need more props here. Basically like that. And then what we're going to do, we're going to wrap this component in our session. So our session provider is going to take a session, and then that will wrap the component, and then we'll close out the session provider, and we'll close out the component. So we'll just move this one over. We will save this. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up sign in and sign out on our index.js file. So in our index.js file, we're going to import use session, sign in, and sign out from Next.auth React. So save that there, and then we are going to add it here. We're going to use session here. So we're going to use that use session hook to get the data about the session. And then we are going to check if there's a session, and if not, we'll return a button that allows users to sign in. And if there is a session, then we'll have a button for them to sign out along with their name. So we'll say welcome session.user.name. And we'll close that. And then we'll close this as well. And this needs to be a div. That's great. And we'll just tab that over. And we'll keep all the rest of this the same. And now we've just added sessions. So we'll relaunch our app and then go and sign in and sign out. So back in our app, you'll see that we have a button to sign in here. And then it'll take us to sign in with GitHub. We can sign in. then we'll be sent back to our blog, and you'll see we are welcomed and we have the ability to sign out, and then we can sign back in again. So this is great. This allows us to track individual users on our site, and we will use a whole bunch for user identification and feature flags and custom event capture. Now that we have the blog and authentication set up, we're going to set up PostHog. So to do this, we've created a new PostHog project here, and I'm going to get the API key from here, and I'm just going to add it in here as next_public_PostHog_key equals this, and then we're going to get the API host as well, which is just app.posthog.com, and we're going to say next_public_posthog_host, and that's going to equal app.posthog.com. We're going to save that, so this is in our env file. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into app.js, and we're going to add the PostHog provider. So to add the PostHog provider, we're going to first need to come down and back into the terminal and run npm install PostHog.js. And once we've done that, we can import PostHog from PostHog.js, and we can import the PostHog provider. PostHog provider from PostHog.js/React. And now we're going to check if we're on the client side. Because Next.js renders both on the server side and the client side, we need to check if there's a window, which means we're on the client side. And to do this, we're going to check if type of window does not equal undefined. We will posthog.init, and we'll get the process.env.next public PostHog key. I think we just named it PostHog key. Yeah, so this name is what we want here. And then we want the API host to be the API host here. Make sure that's the same. And then we'll close this out here. And after this, we're going to wrap the session provider in a PostHog provider. So we're just going to go PostHog provider, and we're going to say client equals PostHog. Delete that, and then we're going to close out the provider, and we're going to neaten this up a little bit, and we'll save that, and then we'll restart the server, and we'll go back to our site and create some events. So back on our site, we can click around a little more. This will capture some events, page view events, and clicks, and then we can go back to our PostHog instance, and we'll click continue. It'll listen for events, and we'll see we've successfully sent some events. And when we continue on here, we'll see that we have some events in our PostHog instance. So that's kind of the basics of PostHog setup. We'll also get session recordings from installing this and clicking the button in the onboarding, the getting started. You'll see if we scroll down here in project settings, you'll see that session recordings are enabled, which is great. We can start to do custom event capture, user identification, and use feature flags now. Something you'll notice here is that we only have a couple of page views, even though we've clicked on different pages, and it doesn't show that we visit these other pages, or else it would say post/1 or /2 for the ID. And this is because Next.js acts as a single page app. So it doesn't reload when we go to another page, and PostHog doesn't trigger a page view on single page apps. We have to manually set up the custom event capture for page views. Luckily, this is pretty simple, and I'm going to show you how to do it right now. So back in our app.js file, we're going to import use router from next router, and we're also going to import use effect from React. And we're going to set up the router, and then we're going to set up a function to capture page views, and this is just going to be called handle route change, and it's just going to trigger a PostHog custom event capture. So that's PostHog.capture, and then it's going to capture a page view event, and then we're going to call this function when the router changes and call it again when the router turns off. So route change complete, and then we're going to use that to handle route change, and then we're going to return, oops, this has to be in a use effect, so we're going to have this in a use effect, which is important. So this triggers it when this app reloads, and then we're going to return, and we're going to trigger it once more when the router turns off. So we're just going to save this here, and we'll save this, and then we'll head back to our Next.js app. We'll reload, we'll visit the other pages, and we'll head back to our PostHog instance and wait for some events to come in here. And now that the events have loaded in, you'll see that when we click the button to go to the Hello World page, we'll get a page view for the Hello World page. So that is page view setup. It's pretty simple. Now we can capture accurately all the page views for our site. So you'll see here that even though we are logged in on our app, we're still being treated as an anonymous person. So to change this, we're going to need to identify this person, and we can do this when they log in with a callback on login. In our index.js file, we're going to import the router. So we need data from the router. So we're going to import use router, and we're also going to import use PostHog to get the data from PostHog and be able to send data to PostHog. So we'll save that, and then we will set up PostHog here. And we'll set up the router. And then we will check the router query, basically. So we'll see signed in equals router.query.signedIn. And this will be a query that will add to the URL when they sign in. And then if this value is equal to the string true, and there's a session, then we will identify this person. So posthog.identify, session.user.email, and we will router.replace. Basically, we'll clear the query from the URL. So we'll save that there as well. And then we can set this up by going down to the sign in. And now our sign in function is going to take a value. So what provider we're going to use, we now have to set this. And then we're also going to set a callback URL. So the callback URL is going to be the same, but it's just going to be /true/signed-in. So now when we sign in, we're going to be triggering this callback URL. So it's going to send back, and then we'll check for this value here, and we will identify the user with their email if this value is true. So we'll go back to our app to test this out. Back in our app, we're going to sign out, and we're going to sign in again. And you'll see that quickly there in the top, there was a signed in param equals true, and that triggered the PostHog identify event. And now if we go to our live events, we'll see an identify event, and we've been identified as ian@posthog.com. So you'll see that the URL was signed in equals true, and now all of these events will be associated with this person. One other thing you need to be sure to do is to reset the person when they log out. So if we don't reset the person when they log out, all events will be associated with this ian@posthog.com person. Even if they log in as another person, that will just combine them more. So we want to call posthog.reset when they log out, and we can set up a similar piece of code to do that. This reset logic is going to check signed in equals false, and that's going to trigger posthog.reset, and then we'll just replace the URL again so it doesn't show up there and it doesn't trigger that again every time they refresh. And then we will do the same thing with the callback URL. We don't need to associate GitHub because we're just logging out here, and we'll just set the callback URL to signed in equals false to match this. And then when we go back to our app and we click sign out, now it will call reset. And when we refresh here and click around, you'll see here we have a different person here associated with these events. The final thing we're going to set up is feature flags. So to set up feature flags, we're first going to need a feature flag. We'll just call this one blog CTA, and we'll keep all the default options. We'll roll it out to 100% of users because we're the only user at the moment. And we'll press save there, and then we'll copy this value and head back to our app. So in our app, we're going to head to our posts page, and we're going to import use feature flag enabled from PostHog.js/React. And then we're going to check this feature flag by going const CTA enabled, and this is going to equal use feature flag enabled, and we'll check our blog CTA. And then we'll write a simple, if it's enabled, we'll just add a go to PostHog. This will just be a link, href equals posthog.com, and this will say go to PostHog. And we'll save this, and then we'll head back to our app, and we should see this CTA show up there. So back in our app, when we go to one of these pages, we'll see a link to go to PostHog, and that is great. That's the feature flag working. We can go back to our feature flag page, and we can edit this feature flag and turn it off. So if we want to turn this feature off, we'll click save there. So this is rolled out to 0%. And now when we go back to our app and press refresh, we'll see that the CTA is gone. So that's basic client-side rendering of feature flags. We can also render them on the server side. So to server-side render feature flags, we're gonna have to make quite a few changes here. We're gonna first remove the code we just added, and that means removing this, and removing this. We're going to change the way we get the post, and we're going to remove both the static path and static props arguments, and we're going to use the get server side props instead. So async function get server side props, and this has a context object associated with it. What we're going to do here is we're going to import get server session from next.auth/next. We're going to install PostHog. So we need to install the server-side version of PostHog, and that's PostHog node. So npm install PostHog node. And once we've done that, we will import that. Import PostHog from PostHog node, and then we will also import use effect and use state from React, and this will set up a state that we will use for our CTA. So back to the get server-side props, what we're going to do here is we're going to get that session, and we can do this by just calling that get server session with a request and a response. And we're going to set up a variable for the flags. That's going to be set to false to start, and if a session exists, the flag won't be true necessarily. We're going to create a PostHog client, PostHog, and we're going to use the next public PostHog key and the next PostHog host that we already set up. We're going to close that out there, and so we have the client here, and then we're going to go flags equals await client.get all flags, and we're going to use session.user.email, and then we're going to set up the posts again. So this is going to be const posts equals import the blog posts again, and those are there. And then we are going to find the posts again, make sure we do toString again, and then we will return both of these to our component. So flags and posts, and close that out. That's great. And then we'll add the flags here, and we'll use effect and use state we set up earlier. So we'll create a state const CTA state and then set CTA state, and we'll make this false to start. And then when the component loads, we'll check if there's flags, and then we'll set the CTA state to the blog CTA flag. We'll close this up here, and we'll just run this whenever the component loads. And so this will check the server for the flags, and then send those flags as a prop to the client, and then render this here. And the final piece is just going to be setting up that CTA. So we'll just have CTA for now. We don't need to rewrite that all over again. And we can reboot the server and check this again. So we need to make sure to roll out the flag to 100% of users again. Save that, and then we can go back to our client and we'll see that we have the CTA here. And if we turn off our flag, the CTA goes away. So there you have it. So that's how you server-side render feature flags in Next.js as well. So that's all for this tutorial on how to set up PostHog in Next.js. We built a Next.js app, set up custom event capture, identified users, and set up feature flags. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. You can find more tutorials like this at posthog.com/tutorials. And be sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.